Welcome to the Intuitive Therapist Podcast with Janis R. Cohen, therapist, clairvoyant, empath, and medium. Listen in as she takes a no-nonsense deep dive into real human struggles and how to resolve them. Janis will share channeled information from her spirit guide team, as well as the angels and archangels, to help you master your emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual destiny. And now, Janis R. Cohen.
Hey y'all, this is Janis Cohen, the Intuitive Therapist here on the Intuitive Therapist Podcast. How do you express your self-worth? When this question dropped into my awareness the other day, it made me realize that it's not a question that I normally think about. And I would bet that it's not a question most people think about. You see, we go about our day just being us, and most of us do that automatically, and we aren't entirely conscious about doing that either, right? But if you were to take time to answer the question about how you express your self-worth, what would you come up with? So let's clarify the difference between self-worth and self-esteem, because there is a difference. Our self-esteem is derived from our abilities, accomplishments, social positions, and things we believe and we can achieve, right? In contrast, self-worth is distinct from our abilities and accomplishments. Our self-worth comes from our sense of self-deservedness, the sense that we deserve to be alive, to be loved, to be cared for, that we deserve to take up space. Most people struggle with a sense of unworthiness, but why? I think back on my youth, and I talk about this often, especially in my program that I'm running now called Awaken and Align, which I'm having so much fun with, y'all. We have great women. We have 8 great women in the program. And when it comes to becoming an Awaken and Align woman, you've got to learn how to cultivate a high sense of self-worth to create the life that you want. But I didn't realize that until a few years ago. You see, my entire life felt like a struggle to find my self-worth. And it wasn't something that my parents encouraged me to have. They didn't discourage me, but they didn't intentionally encourage me to have, let alone anybody else encourage me to develop, come to think of it. That kind of talk wasn't in the education system from my teachers. It wasn't a discussion point with my parents, my aunts, my friends. And I think most people struggle to cultivate self-worth because they haven't figured out how to overcome the obstacles and pain in their lives. I feel like this is the root cause. And I think now, more than ever, there's an emphasis on recognizing people's differences. And in the society in which we live now, everything is different. The things that never would have been addressed or talked about when I was coming up in the 70s are really now public domain. And so it's easier to access mentors and women who are highly evolved in the area of self-worth to learn from. Those I didn't have in my coming up. I know that the only way that I've cultivated high self-worth is from going through a lot of shit, going through a lot of pain, a lot of painful experiences romantically. That was the way that I learned. I wasn't taught how to date smart or how to be in my feminine power when I dated. I wasn't taught how to vet a man to date so that I could determine if he was right for me, not the other way around, and waiting for the guy to determine if I was good enough. I just dated, and I dated mostly the wrong kind of men. And I know I did that because I had a great deal of romantic and personal karmic debt to settle in this lifetime, and that my soul made sure that I had enough experiences in that arena that I would have to one day choose me over anything in any relationship. It was a huge lesson for me. And further, to not just choose me, but to raise and establish my personal standards for how I decided to be treated in a relationship. And it took me 30 years of pain, heartache, and heartbreak to finally get it. But I did. Now, what do you do if you haven't yet been able to cultivate a high self-worth? Truth is, and this is really the only way to do it, you've got to reach a point where staying in the place of low self-worth is unacceptable anymore, right? Meaning that the pain of staying in that space is intolerable. So something has to change. There's another way, though, and I mentioned that at the top of this episode. If you haven't processed and completed the incomplete emotional experiences that have been painful, meaning the emotions that you still hold on to that represent pain and hurt, and if you don't know how capable you are of overcoming them and eliminating the energetic charge to them so that you can thank the universe for every single painful experience you've ever had, then you're going to continue to struggle to not just find little particles and breadcrumbs of self-worth, but to step into and become completely worthy of yourself. Okay, so I just channeled that last sentence, and you'll find it, I swear to God, it was like, holy crap. You'll find it hard to become worthy of yourself if you don't deal with your emotions. And this is the key. Become worthy of yourself, not anybody else. The answer to anyone who struggles to find self-worth, y'all, you have got to become worthy of yourself before you can feel worthy of anything or anybody else. Damn, that's powerful, isn't it? And to do this, you can begin to practice the following 5 things. First, when you feel badly, stop and get curious immediately about why. Just observe the thoughts you're thinking and the beliefs you're practicing in that moment, and decide to have different thoughts and beliefs that only support you feeling good about yourself, that only help you identify in a strength-based way. Second, do nice things for yourself on a regular basis. Treat yourself like a king or queen. Maybe that means taking half a day off to take a bath, get a massage, read a book, or watch movies. Maybe that means taking yourself out to lunch, having a play date with a friend, or just looking in the mirror and giving yourself some real love, looking in your eyes, giving yourself some real love and nurturing. 3, keep your promises to yourself large and small. This is an important piece of your self-worth, because if you don't value yourself enough to keep your promises large and small, how will you ever have enough courage to keep promises to anyone else? Number 4, forgive yourself for who you were in your past. Let me explain this one, because I think most people struggle with this. Everything you've ever done in the past that brought you regret, disappointment, shame, or embarrassment, or any other low-grade feeling occurred because you weren't as evolved as you are now. Let me say that again. Everything you've ever done in the past that brought you regret, disappointment, shame, or embarrassment occurred because you weren't as evolved as you are now. That version of yourself only did what he or she knew how to do at the time. It's like if you ask a kindergartner to take a college course. You wouldn't do that, of course, because you know they aren't at an educational level. They haven't matured enough, or whatever the reason is, to be able to handle it, right? They're going to fail because they haven't learned what they need to learn to be prepared to take a college course. And the previous versions of you, I want you to listen to this, they needed to learn and grow too. And who you are today is not who you were yesterday, a year ago, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. So you've got to give all of these old versions you love, a break. Give them love and compassion, knowing that they just didn't have what it took to make decisions that you would now make. And then allow yourself to continue to make whatever turns and pivots with the knowledge that you'll continue to grow and evolve and become even greater versions of yourself over time in the future, with more wisdom and knowledge to move forward. We all learn new things all the time, right? So just be kind of all of those, be kind to all of those previous versions of yourself, and just let the judgment go. You wouldn't beat up on your child or your dog for not knowing better, right? So why do you do that to yourself? 5, practice self-acceptance. This is also a tough one for most. But I will say that the more responsibility you decide to take for who you are and what you do, the more self-worth you cultivate. So I ask you, where can you take more responsibility for yourself in your life? Whether it's your health, by just changing what you eat, or going for exercise, right, walks, with your money, with your work, where in your relationships. How can you take responsibility for how you've shown up and then take action to show up better? So go fix those parts. And if you can't do it on your own, find somebody who can help you, whether it's a mentor, a friend, your partner, anybody. This work is not easy, y'all, but it's necessary if you truly want to feel free, liberated, and as if life is worth living. And once you get to a place where you know that you deserve a spot in this world, that the universe is lucky as fuck to have you in it, you'll experience a life in a whole new way. Because guess what? You are worthy of everything, of all the good stuff, everything your heart desires, simply because you exist. Period. End of story. Now go take responsibility for what you haven't yet. Make some significant changes, small and large, and just see how your life blossoms and your own self-worth. I wish you a blessed day, a wonderful week, and as always, live intuitively.
Thanks for listening to The Intuitive Therapist. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share this podcast with a friend. And be sure to give us some stars and a favorable review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in.